It's 6:30 in the morning. I've been up chatting to one of my friends in another time zone for about a little while now, and I'm about to drive to a place called Arlington, Texas. I'm currently on the outside of Dallas in a place called Willie, which was a safe area to park for the night. I parked in a Holiday Inn Express parking lot, put up the curtains, had no issues. There's some really unsafe areas of Dallas, so in this vlog I'm going to talk to you a bit about what you can do to make sure that you're parking in safe areas overnight, because I made that mistake 2 nights ago, well, 3 nights ago now, where I parked in an area that wasn't the safest and I had someone trying to break in at 1 in the morning, and that was not fun. But we're gonna get to that a bit later. Right now we're gonna get ready. We're gonna go to the gym, hopefully, because I'm starting to get a bit smelly. It's been 3 days since I showered and I really want to change that. So Planet Fitness, here we come. And then I'm going to Repair Place in Arlington, and then I'm gonna start heading towards Big Bend National Park, which I'm super excited for. Currently stopped in a not so safe area of Dallas, and I had to stop because my engine was making sounds in first, second, and third gear. It's like a clucking sound, like a cranking, not like a cranking sound, but like a thing hitting itself sound, and it sounded like something in the engine, and it was in first, second, and third gear when that was happening. Fourth gear, maybe it's just so loud that I can't hear it, but no good. So I pulled over, I looked up stuff on the Samba, looked up stuff on Van Alert, tried to get in touch with mechanics. Turns out like 12 of the people that I tried contacting can't work on the bus, and so trying to problem solve, I looked on the Samba forums, tried to figure out what people do when their engines are having issues with the clucking sound, and I also texted a couple friends who know about buses a little bit. One thing I did figure out is that it was super low on oil, which means that the metal engine rods could have been hitting, which could be a really expensive repair. One of the guys that I was talking to said it might be something with the valves, which could mean something with the engine, because sometimes those new engines aren't made so well and it doesn't have a warranty, which is no good. So let's figure out what it is. I use the Castrol GTX 20 to 50. If you are in a bus, you should probably carry this with you, the big 5-quart container, because you're probably gonna need it at some point. That lovely thing, well, I didn't bring it, so I would say if you are packing for the road, please bring it. And paper towels, you can never have enough paper towels. So soap's amazing, and water. That's how I was able to wash the oil off my hands. Got oil pretty much everywhere. I don't know if you can see because it's a little bit dark under here, but this thing has some oil built up on it. You can probably see the reflection there. And then this, where you actually change oil in this area, it's got some oil that's already dripping out onto the ground. So obviously that might be a culprit. Maybe I've just been dripping oil and it got to a point where it was so low. The one thing I still do need to find a way to check though is what the sound is and if there's little metal parts in my oil, because if there is, then it's been grinding at it and that might be a bad thing. Made a little bit of a mess, hopefully did some good for the engine. Guess we'll find out once I see a mechanic. And here I am, 3 miles away. I ended up going to a mechanic's house. He ended up telling me all about my engine, a bunch of things that are wrong with it. We found out it was actually one of the CV joints that went bad, and so it was making sounds and it went in a circle, so thankfully that's all it was. But he was telling me also about the cooling flaps and different elements that my engine did not come with.
So what this does is it actually seals up against the top of here, and it cuts off the airflow to cooling this part of the engine. Because the fan, you know, blows through here and it blows the air through the cylinder.
So it's like alternating. This one goes up and then this one, and then...
Well, so this is in cold position. It's like this. When it warms up, this drops down like that. And now the cooling air, this flap, is not all the way down at the bottom of the hole. It's parts way up. So it's guiding air through this oil cooler, which this is your oil cooler. It's guiding air through your oil cooler, and it's putting air through here.
So it's not as much hot air coming out of here, it's now being funneled down some of it.
It's throwing cool air to cool the oil cooler, because this is your oil cooler. It's like the radiator for your oil. So it cools the head and it cools this. If this flap is gone, the air just blows right over that oil cooler and does it. A little bit gets in, but it doesn't cool it well. So you actually overheat the oil in the engine,
Okay.
which is not good, because it can make the engine You know, you can lose bearings and stuff. And they love to leave these off, you know, but they're critical for that. And if just a little more on the lesson, the reason you're supposed to have a thermostat is the idea is when you start up the engine, it's cold, and you know you have combustion in the cylinders. You know anything about it? You know. So anyway, you know the gas and the air goes in there and you know blows up, and it really requires a certain temperature for it to burn correctly. Until it reaches that temperature, it does not burn correctly. It's too cool for the air fuel ratio.
Which is why you turn it on and you let it sit for a minute to warm up before you drive usually.
Right. What this does is it gets it heated up as quick as possible so it's ready to go. If you leave it out, you're blowing cold air on the cylinders and it's trying to keep it cool when the thing's trying to warm up. With the flaps or in the shut position, it lets it warm up real quick, the flaps open, and
so it'll actually warm up faster, and then once it's warm, it'll cool it as it's properly supposed to do.
Right. But it may take hours for it to get up to correct operating temperature if it's never given a chance to get up to operating. If you're cooling it too soon, then it keeps it too cool.
It's like preheating the oven and opening the door every 2 seconds.
It was kind of like, you know, when I was younger, we thought, yeah, make it run as cool as possible, you know, but learn this is incorrect. You have to have a certain operating temperature. And I didn't learn this through Volkswagen, I learned that through Porsche, but, you know, because they use the same engine. But anyway, so that's how that works. And, of course, there's the metal that goes over here that channels all the air through. And then I'll show you, too. Here are, let's see. These are upper engine bolts. Let's see if I have any of those bolts on it.
Oh, if you do, I would definitely love to get those from you.
That's probably ones that would work right there. That's the length. And it goes through a mount that's right there, or through the transmission, actually. And then it screws into here. You're missing these nuts. And the problem is I can get the bolt in, but I can't get a nut on this side unless I take this tin off, which is kind of involved because you have to take a bunch of stuff off to get that piece of tin off because it, you know, it
covers the whole area.
Right. So if you get that tin pulled up, you can stick the bolts through and put nuts on them.
Okay.
So anyway, that's it.